Welcome to the SEO Insider with your host, Seth Price, founder of BluShark, taking you inside the world of legal marketing and all things digital.
Welcome, everybody. We're so excited to have you here on our SEO Insider. We have Joy Hawkins, one of the legends of the space. It's an honor to have you here, Joy.
Thanks for having me, Seth. I'm excited.
You know, we following your work for many years as a friend, as a client, and so excited to see what you're doing with Local U. And not only is there one, but there are two opportunities in the coming weeks to partake. And wanted to hear a little bit about what you have planned and what Local U is today.
Yeah, so we just basically wanted to try and do in-person conferences. As the world has kind of gotten used to virtual, we're trying to get people back in the habit of meeting in person because I think just meeting people, it's invaluable. Like you can't put a number on it. The connections that you make, that's how I met you, right? Like the reason why we know each other. We met at a conference somewhere. Don't even remember which one. So the idea of Local U is to talk about anything pertaining to local businesses. So whether that be SEO, paid ads, social media, whatever they need to know about marketing as a local business, that's what the conference is for.
And, okay, so we have Detroit that Guy is helping to host. And then you've
Yes.
got New York coming up after that with Wix hosting in New York City. I remember the Local U at the Sheraton years ago was awesome when we had real inside perspective from like people inside of Google. Talk to me a little bit about what to expect. I remember what you guys did in the old days, but what's the current Local U agenda like?
Yeah, so I know a couple of the sessions off the top of my head. My session, I'm going to be talking about link building. So that sounds like a boring topic. I'll be honest. It's not, I promise you. I've done testing for the last like 2 to 3 years on what types of links actually impact ranking on Google. It's like a big mystery, right? Like everybody's like, oh, the black box of link building. Like you could spend $50,000 in links and have no clue what you got from it. Hopefully you got something, but I see people all the time throwing out money like crazy at links. So I wanted to know like, what types of links and what do they do and how much do they impact ranking? And I measured and I have lots and lots of examples. So that's my talk. And it's all
That's
stuff that we haven't even published yet. So
worth the
nobody
price
would
of
have
admission alone.
nobody would have heard it anywhere before. It's new stuff. Colin, I know who's my colleague, his topic is all something that's really interesting. We see a lot with like lawyers. He's talking about Google's filter, and it's a very misunderstood topic. But it's like the idea that like Google actually filters out businesses all the time and makes them kind of invisible because they are too close to other businesses in their industry. He's talking about how that filter works, how you know when it's impacting you. And I'd say it's a bigger problem for businesses in larger cities.
Oh, it's huge. We
Yeah.
see it, BluShark. We see it. We're super fans of Colin and his genius. And I see this to the point where we have to have law firm clients, even medical clients, reach out to us before they sign leases because
Yep.
you can really put yourself in a pickle. And I also say this like with great SEO, maybe you can overcome it, but that's a lot of risk and a lot of time and not a lot of fun.
And it's so inconsistent because like we see this all the time. Google does a major update with their algorithm, and it's like maybe you weren't filtered, and then now you are. It's like it's so inconsistent. So yeah, it's a big problem that I think is misunderstood. So he's kind of walking through examples of like, here was an example of a business. This is what it did. This is how we fixed it. Very tactical and very practical, like the stuff he's talking about.
Talk to me a little bit about from your perspective. You're talking link building, which is obviously essential to SEO, the intersection between SEO and local search, the Google Business Profile interface, and how you're seeing that. Now, there's been so much talk about reviews and proximity, but how are links fitting into the whole milieu?
Yeah, so that's like one of the things I address in my presentation is like, what's the difference between how links impact local pack rankings, so ranking in the map pack, whatever you want to call it, or organic rankings, which is like everything else. There's a huge difference. I'm not going to spoil my talk, but massive difference in how much links impact one versus the other. So I wanted to measure that. So I have all these examples of testing we did, clients we did this for, what happened to their local pack rankings versus their organic rankings. It's very different, I'll tell you that much.
Are
But
you
yeah, I'm going to be talking about that.
understanding that organic is, it's one of the two major pillars? Are there examples that you're finding through your research where where types of links or link building can be more effective for the map pack? Are there things that you, when you're interested in map pack, the example that was always given was, obviously everybody wants CNN if they can get it. That's a great link. But that are there now sort of troves of links that you may not think as impactful to organic ranking that may be ones you should be thinking about for map pack? Is that the type of thing we should look forward to?
So far, no. I'll tell you, there's no difference that I've seen. A link is a link. So that, yeah, I've not seen any evidence that says like certain types of links impact look back rankings better than others. It's all just how good the link is. The two that I dive into really heavily are what they call guest posting. You might have different terms for it, but the idea of, writing a piece for another site and getting linked that way. And then also citations, which is obviously very relevant to local businesses. A lot of them do that still at scale.
Awesome. Talk to me a little bit about, this conversation came up with Guy, just, shooting the stuff the other day, where your thoughts on when spam links are on a site, how much is Google ignoring, and is there any actual negative impact beyond ignoring, assuming no manual action penalty?
So you're talking about like negative SEO where like, I don't like you, so I'm going to
Well,
build a
no,
bunch
no,
of
no.
bad links to your site? No. Okay.
Let's, how it gets to you is irrelevant, whether you build it or somebody does it for negative, right? I think negative SEO is
Okay.
much overblown with limited real examples. But assuming that somehow miraculously a link, a spammy link, you look at it, everybody looks at it, right? 12 bishops and rabbis or 12 Joyce and her colleagues look at this thing and say, this is a spam link. There's no other way to describe it. Maybe a high authority site, but it's a spam link. Is this something that, assuming the Google algorithm agrees, are you seeing anything short of a manual action where it hurts somebody versus it just doesn't have a positive impact?
Yeah, I mostly see it just doesn't have a positive impact, like 99% of the time. Manual actions are so uncommon. So we've seen one, literally one in the last, I hate putting a number on this because I don't know the exact number of years. Let's say 5 to 10 years. Like it's been a really long time since I've seen
Since
one.
the
And
big cleanup years ago.
yeah, like whenever Penguin happened, I don't even know what year that was, but like there was a lot back in that day. And I saw one back at my old agency. So I'm thinking like it must have been at least 8 years ago. And so I
But what
haven't
did it
seen
take? So
one.
what did it take, without no names, but like
Yeah, yeah.
what level of nonsense did it take to get?
I'll I'll give as many details as I can. So it was a home service business. So definitely a local business, which is intriguing because I'm like, ooh, local business actually got a manual action. This is possible. I'll tell you the most fascinating thing is I have seen zero impact so far to the rankings. And I say so far because I checked this a few weeks ago, but there was like weeks after their manual action. I was expecting to see like they rank nowhere. And yeah, exactly the death cliff, right? And maybe over time that'll happen. But this was a business that went out and hired a link building company. They built links fast. So it went from, like no referring domains to like 50 to 100 within like a couple months. And that's only the links that like Ahrefs knows about, right? I've seen Ahrefs doesn't pick up on a good chunk of links that are built, like
And
a really
Ahrefs is
good
not
amount.
Google.
No. So like this is just looking at that. Like based on that, you see this line graph of their referring domains and it's like just like shoots way up. They were like the worst links you could imagine. Like basically it was guest posting, but it was done like they took one article, they spun it, I'm guessing using AI, making some assumptions here, reposted that same article on like a bunch of different sites, pretty much the same content, really rich anchors. And the authors that are posting the content are like posting about crypto and posting about like all these other spammy
It's
topics. And
nonsense.
like, it's crazy. So it's like, these are garbage, like really garbage. Like I've seen what I classify as garbage links, but this was like next level. So I'm like, yeah, you have to be pretty bad to get a manual action. But it's also shocking to me that so far doesn't seem like the kiss of death.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And because
Don't always make that.
as a one case study they had from years ago, somebody who did objectively have negative SEO put on them, I think it was the greatest gift they ever got, in the sense that they, I'm sure some stuff was filtered out, but some stuff wasn't, and incredible boom from it. And I think that's one of the things that it's SEOs that you really struggle with. You need to make sure, it's almost impossible to have somebody sign off, but it is sort of one of those real discussions to have with clients, because in hyper competitive markets where people are being overly aggressive, the question is, and again, it's the age old question, but I think what's old is new again. that there is that question of how aggressive should you be, and just get some of your thoughts. We aren't seeing those negative manual action. You could be wasting money, but what is your thought in hyper competitive markets of like where are you make sure that you're super proud of every link that you build, or are you is a certain like in the old days of exact anchor text, are we okay with 2 or 3% of links that you might have to hold your nose at, but that are part of playing the game?
I would not spend money on link building unless you actually know that it's moving your rankings. And I feel like 99% of the time that I look at these reports and these things where people have hired link builders, they have no idea. Like they don't know what it's doing. They have no clue. I talk to agencies who have no clue, and I'm like, they think it's helping. They don't really know. And I was like, unless you know that like I built this link and this happened, then you shouldn't even bother. So when we do
That's
like
a little bit, I'll push back on that a little bit. I mean, to a certain extent, if you look for that, I mean, nobody is inside the Google algorithm, and there are things that happen over time. Now, if you build, if links are acquired, built, whatever, however they appear, and that over time you see somebody in search rankings for significant competitive keywords move up, is that enough for you to say, yes, it's working? Or, because like if you take the marketing concept, you speak to like a John Morgan, like, yeah, I don't know what works, what doesn't work. So, I advertise a budget, something works. The 50% of marketing works, you just don't know which half. Is there some of that to this, that if you really looked for an exact correlation, that's, again, it happens, but it's further and farther between.
the majority of link building, and I say a whopping majority, does nothing. And I talk about that in my presentation. There's some easy ways to actually confirm that. And I think that it's harder than it used to be, but I don't think you needed a large number. So we often will build, I don't know, depending on the budget, for some clients, like 1 link a month, for some clients, 10 links a month. I don't think we have anyone over 10. Like really, it's not a numbers game, and you do not normally need more than that. Even in the most competitive markets for the most competitive industries, I've yet to see one where the number needed to be higher than that. So I found again the companies that offer high numbers of links, the
No, right.
majority of them,
Agreed. It's quantity
yeah.
over quality. The question is, and again, what is liked and what is as the Google algorithm advances, do we know that something that we built a couple of years ago is liked more or less today? And that's why to look for the direct piece, I feel like you're investing in an asset. You're not doing stupidly. You're thinking creatively of what should work, but to try to sort of I don't feel confident enough that that I'm going to understand what's there and know that what Google wants today is going to be the exact same. I mean, I see it going in the same direction, cleaning out spam. Do you see, we've seen so much work over the last few years with Google really focused on high quality content. And I think of late really trying to prevent AI from just, infecting the entire content world. Is that, the Google algorithm always seems to be filtering, but are you seeing more and more touch points where it is getting smarter and smarter? I assume if you're building that few links, you're saying, hey, we're confident we know what is not what is preferred, and we'll focus on that rather than being a sharpshooter rather than a machine gun sniper.
Yeah, literally, that's actually a great analogy. Yeah, we found it actually doesn't take a long amount of time to measure the impact from links, usually weeks. So not months, not years. And there is a shelf life to links as well. So, building a link and just doing nothing else and watching that over years, you'll see declines in ranking. So there is a shelf life, and I don't know what that is for every link, but we definitely saw evidence to that, and I talked about that a bit in my presentation. So I think it is something that it does have to be ongoing. It's not like a one-time thing. When it comes to content, that's a whole different thing. I've been tracking a bunch of examples of people that are overdoing it, so I can share a couple of those stories.
Okay.
One that's fascinating. So service area pages still work very well, which is shocking to a lot of people. Like why would you need 15 different pages, one for, Atlanta, one for Boston, whatever, that are pretty much about the same topic, but localized. Still works really well. So there was a, a company that posted on our forum, and they got a manual action for having, I believe it was like a few thousand pages, and they had a few thousand service area pages, and they were pretty much the exact same thing posted for like 3,000 different cities, right? We've seen this. So they got a manual action for Google, which I, again, do not see often. And Google, and you watch their traffic, like just went like tank. They actually had the kiss of death, which is kind of funny. So what they did is they took all their pages down and then redirected them, I guess, to the homepage. And the manual action was removed. And I tracked them over the next few months. They put all the pages back like a few months later. I was like, wow, but they're still ranking. So I'm like,
that's what you call chutzpah, right? But chutzpah,
kind of funny. But I'm like, yeah,
history is written by the victor.
yeah.
That is amazing. I mean, like, look, you spend time in the legal space, and I spent a lot of time in the legal space. You know, the idea that the law is the same within a state everywhere, and that it, you know, but that the Google rules do not make it duplicate, and you know, needs, and look, with good reason. You want people to push and be specific to a jurisdiction. It shouldn't just be cut and paste. But it is tempting, and I get this question all the time from new clients. Well, the law is the same. Why can't we just repeat it? And there's a piece of me who's like, yeah, for the part that's relevant, you know, that would be a better business practice. It's just not the game we play.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the other one I was tracking was AI, right? So we had the lawyer that was like, oh, you know, I know I need more localized content, so I'm just going to take the same concept and do like a bunch of service area pages. And they used AI and they pumped them all at once. I think it was a few hundred, and like none of them got indexed. Like they're all unindexed pages. They're not ranking for anything. It didn't give them any more traffic. And this is not the approach. Like whenever you're talking about localized content, if you just spin it in mass and create a bunch of these pages, that doesn't work. So I think that sometimes people go overboard. Like it's good, but anytime you try to do something in mass, Google tends to not like it.
Well, right. I mean, look, any pattern. It's true with everything, right? If somebody goes to a conference and gets 500 links in the same room,
Yeah.
everybody on the Wi-Fi, it's not a good place to be. And that, you know, talk a little bit about AI with you. You know, my working theory has been is that Google did not get there first. It's not their product. They don't really want it to succeed. They were happy with the business model they had, and that, you know, they are going to do everything. I mean, we have our third-party tools to check it out, and we can tell when somebody, you know, we check our own writers and contract writers and clients' sites to make sure that nobody's dumping AI stuff on there. But I got to think that from a business model point of view, Google is fully incentivized to at least not credit, if not ding, pure AI content.
I think whether it's AI or not doesn't really matter. It's like, did users want it? Like, do they actually care about whatever it is that you're putting on your site? And I think that the vast majority of AI content, the answer to that is no, right? Like when I think about when I'm researching, you know, I don't know, let's say I'm researching a law, I don't want a bunch of AI content. Would I want a lawyer site? Probably, but also I would say that the average lawyer site is not legible to an average person. Like I've looked at enough of them as a non-lawyer. So I don't know, like you being a lawyer, you're probably like, oh, this
Well,
makes sense.
it's so funny because I have the back and forth. The Benowitz of Price Benowitz, my law firm. He's a lawyer's lawyer. He teaches at Harvard Law for a week a year. If I give him something he wrote last year, he'd rewrite it again. He hates everything on our sites. I'm like, please just don't read it. Like it's not written for you. And like you do your best to have, look, we take great pride in making it high quality. I love it when people read it and it's great information, or they're doing a search for something random and it comes up. But the question of who should be determining. Now, forget about Google. We're obviously playing the game for that, and we want the consumer to like it. But the
Yeah.
lawyer that is reading things and saying, "Hey, this is garbage," everything's garbage.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a newsletter. How do you say something without saying anything? And that, you know, with this, you obviously have facts. You want to be legible and understandable. But I almost feel like the person who should be judging it, the lawyers have to read it to make sure they maintain their bar license.
Of
But
course.
understood, but it's almost like I want like a middle school teacher to be
Mm-hmm.
reviewing it and giving, like, you know, maybe have like the New York Post copy editor. You know, all I want is something that is at that, you know, can be accessible. You know, lawyers, particularly in the PI space, are spending their time advertising on Judge Judy and other shows like that. And then they complain that the writing's not sophisticated enough. Okay, let's figure out who are you really trying to hit. Now, I also want to be good enough that if a lawyer looks at it, they're going to like it. but it is, who is your audience? And if you're too frenetic and saying, well, I want it to be good, that a referral partner is going to read it and think this is amazing, versus somebody else is going to look at it and say, hey, they're speaking about my topic. I get it. Here's the phone number. I'm going to click or call. To me, it is one of those very frustrating things that I want to always talk to clients up front about what is the call to question? Why are you doing this? It's not for your health. It's to build traffic for your site and hopefully qualified traffic.
Yeah, and users really, they love experiences, right? So the average user wants to know what other person had the same experience that I'm having and what did they do to fix it, right? So I think that's something that all small business types, not just lawyers, need to do more of, is like sharing more stories of what they did for clients. Like for Sterling Sky, that's case studies. We need to publish more case studies, talk about like how we solved this problem for this lawyer and how they rank on Google and blah, blah, blah. But like for the average business owner, if I'm a lawn care provider, like show me this problem on a lawn. What did you do to fix it? What are the steps? Talk about like an actual job you did with photos, etc. Like
No,
that type of information is usually missing on most sites.
it's funny. We have a plastics sort of elective medical division, and the irony about what we've learned about what plastic surgeons care about compared to lawyers, it's the before and after page. If
Oh yeah,
there's a miscropped photo on the before and after page, that's like end of the world.
huge.
Whereas the
Yep.
lawyer might be like a typo, like you would think you're never going to get another client again, and it's just a fascinating back and forth.
Yeah. No, the photos are huge for plastic surgery for sure. Like, because again, think about it. Like, you want to see what it looks like. You
But
want
that
to
also
know.
goes back to the age-old issue that we've dealt with for years, which is you get somebody who comes and says, hey, I want to paint a homepage with no content on it. And I'm like, well, it's beautiful, and you're more than welcome to do it as a conversion page. But like if you want to do SEO, it's not a best practice, and you sort of go down that rabbit hole. You started to touch on this, so let's sort of land the plane with this, which is reviews and the state of reviews, the level of fraud out there. My understanding is your agency doesn't even want to be in the game of sort of helping people figure out how to compete against bad and fake reviews. What advice do you give to end users when it comes to that? Do you worry about yourself? But if some guy's built, if you have 200, 300, 400 reviews you've built out of hard work over a decade, and some Yahoo comes with 1,000 reviews in 6 months, how should an end user deal with it? Do you fight, or do you just continue to worry about yourself?
So I'm actually tracking something that's really interesting that I haven't really written about, but something I've started to notice that Google's doing, not at scale yet, but there are a few businesses that we're tracking that have review blocks on. I don't know if you've ever come across this yet, but you actually cannot post a new review for these businesses. So one's a lawyer, one's in the HVAC space, and basically like you wouldn't know they had a block on. The only way to really test it out is to go try and leave a review, and you won't get an error message as a user, but the review will never publish. It doesn't matter who you are.
And we
So
get
you'll
that all the
actually,
time. We get that from clients, whether it's a review block or not. We periodically clients' reviews are not sticking.
yeah, that's different. So this
Right.
is like you have months go by where
No,
you
I
can't
understand.
get
But,
a,
but when
yeah,
it starts, you don't know which one it is, right?
exactly. Yeah. It's frustrating because Google's not going to tell you. But like, yeah, we've actually seen cases where businesses go months where they cannot get new reviews, and then something gets lifted and all of a sudden they can get reviews. And I've actually seen a couple cases where one of them was like a company that was buying reviews in mass. Like they had tons of locations. They were buying reviews for years, and Google would take them down. They would get more. Google would take them down. They would get more. And just recently, like last year, they now like their review star average has stuck. Like they're stuck at like 2 point whatever
Oh,
their review stars, and they
harsh.
cannot get new reviews. Like they have no new
Well,
positive reviews coming in.
but that sort of goes to the question, if you're sitting there and you're getting crushed, and that may be a big national, oil change place or something, whatever it is, the idea that as an individual lawyer, you have that decision, which is or doctor or any other person playing the local review game, you try to keep your own world clean, and you see people
Yes.
taking extreme steps, and it seems that, look, there's talk about, the FTC and other groups are talking about this. Will it blow up? I'm sure at the highest level it will, but it doesn't do you a heck of a lot of good if some Yahoo who's living in his basement at 28 years old is dominating your space with review count. And then it comes down to, should you have part of your budget, money, or time wise spent on fighting, on spam fighting as far as the reviews.
Yeah, spam fighting does work in some industries and it doesn't work in others. So we've pulled back quite a bit on certain ones because I was like, can we measure the impact? Does this have any impact? And we had a lot of cases where, if we report fake listings or fake reviews, we couldn't measure any impact on our client. Like their leads didn't go up. You know what I mean? Like we couldn't actually tie that back to some benefit to our client.
It's so funny because you're so concerned about the benefit, and as like I'm an end user as well as an agency owner, and to me, I'm more than willing to throw money, whether it's at links, not sure which one's going to work, but knowing some will. If we have a radio campaign going, can I tell you how many cases came from it? I can do it. A couple said yes, but like when you see the stuff go up by 30%, I'm like, okay, I'm good. I know there's some positive, and I sort of feel like it's here in that there's so many variables. But if you could take a juggernaut and get them to be a 3.0 or a 2.8 to demonstrate, yes, they may get reviews that I can't even match, but it's demonstrating that they're at least pulling out the fake 5 stars, then you sort of that, it's just an interesting
Yeah.
juxtaposition that you're so concerned with how you're spending somebody else's money, and
Yes.
a lot of people like myself, which I feel that way when it comes to sort of some of the spammy reviews. I see some of my competitors that are really going to town with it, and I think their attitude is there's no manual action,
Yeah.
enough will get through. And yet I don't think it's right. And I think there's risk, and I'm not, you know, but it's sort of funny how very often we'll spend somebody when we're responsible for somebody else, we think differently than when it's ourselves, where we take more of a flex and a risk.
The problem I ran into is like, let's say we did report your competitor, right? And they're buying all these reviews and Google took them down, they would just go buy more. That's what we kept finding. So like we would be successful in getting reviews removed and Google would act on them, but there was no way to stop them from getting more.
Well,
And that's where
unless
we're
you do
like,
it for long enough and now there's a gating or something like that.
yeah, or a block. Yeah, the block, I'm
Block,
like,
block, sorry.
ooh, if Google started doing this at like more, this would work. I think that would solve their problems. I actually hope they do, but I don't know. Like, I don't know what
Well, but
Google's going to
also you
do.
remember a couple of years back, we saw for it felt like years, these exact match niche Google business profiles would pop up. I think they were, yeah, called that, and they would have like one review and they just stick there. And if
Hmm.
I feel like Google, okay, it took them so long, but they seem to have cleaned out that
Yeah,
muck. And now
100%.
they're going on to the mass review concept, which is, hey, these guys are really nefarious. And what I'm hoping is that when great people like yourself or others, whoever it is who does that, or people who do it themselves, if Google says, hey, we've checked this 3 times and each time we go, there's a clump. I know that it's not like a guy there with like a checkbox, but hopefully the algorithm figures something out where there's enough nonsense going on that Google realizes that this is not on the up and up.
They're getting better. I think the problem is the volume's getting worse. So it's like the balance of the two, right? Like there's more fake reviews. Google is improving, but there's more fake reviews. It's like they almost have to get ahead of that curve, which I think is hard.
And it's
But I
also
think that,
it's dribbling out. It's not the old school
yeah,
bad reviews where it was like 500 in a day. People have now figured out that it sort of dribbles out over time and looks more natural.
yeah. Like my advice to people that are like really want to fight this, like the transparency company, they do this, right? They report reviews like crazy. They don't just report them to Google, they'll like report people to the state bar. They'll report to the BBB, like they do everything. And I think it's again hard to say like, is that doing anything? But I think long term it might, right? Like if you have enough and there's enough volume, then I think that's really where real damage could come in. Like if a business, loses their license, that's a problem. But
No,
I haven't
obviously, I
seen that
think
happen. Yeah,
not yet.
I haven't seen that happen yet. But I do think the day's coming, right? Like I don't think that people are going to get away with this forever.
Right, we're seeing it in the mass tort legal space where people woke up and they realized they had an inventory of cases, and like half of them were people in India with scripts who
Mm.
were pretending to be actual claimants that were just nonsense. And I think that like the moment that a lawyer actually got hit, and was in crosshairs, all of a sudden everybody's like, oh, this could happen to me. And until that happens, I think that that's sort of the, people are talking about the state bars, but nothing's really, at least publishable, been an issue so far.
Yeah. I mean, if you have pull there, I'd push it there because I feel like they can do more damage than Google can, right? Like, I think as far as
Yes and no, but it's also, do they care? I mean, I'll go back to Guy, who follows this really closely, and he'll see cases where the bars are aware, and they just, it's not even part of their DNA. They have very specific things they care about, and this just doesn't seem to be. And at some point, if somebody at a committee meeting says, yes, we care about it now, then they'll start to care. But it's not like the person looking at it is not trained in it, and they're like, this is all Greek to me. I'll go to something I know that's finite in front of me. But
for sure.
thank you so much for your time today. Tell us what are the dates for the two upcoming local U's?
Yeah, so the one in Michigan is end of June, and the one in New York City is in September, I believe mid-September. And localu.org has all the specific details where the tickets are. Tickets are $300, which is the first time they've ever been that cheap. They're usually 900, just to clarify. So
Well, awesome.
we are, yeah,
I will say
trying
I've been to
something.
multiple ones before. They are awesome. It is great substance, great networking. And if you're in the local search space, it is really a must attend. So thank you for putting it on and taking it over. And can't wait to see you in Detroit.
Same.
Very good.
Thank you for tuning in to the SEO Insider with Seth Price. Be sure to check back next week for fresh insights into building your brand's online presence. Episodes are available to stream directly on BluShark Digital's website.